relished by the wisest men.
Hey, EK, you're gonna run this live on.
You're live on Facebook now too.
Are you gonna run it on the comedy page and FXBG Public
I'll
Radio?
share it to all those places. It's going live from your page,
Okay.
and then I'll go back and I'll
Can
share it.
can you share on Shock Monkey Radio Redux on my Facebook? Can you do that?
Can you run it through his
Thank you.
page too, so we can run it as a swapcast? Or is that too
Uh,
many? Is that too much?
I haven't configured the bandwidth for it.
Okay.
I have to divide the bandwidth evenly across all three streams. Yes, we can do three. It's just set up for two.
Okay.
Careful.
I don't want to push it too hard.
You're fine. Can people hear you
Exactly.
on the microphone too?
Yes, but
Yeah,
quieter
yeah.
because I'm far away.
It's good though. It's the type of. They should be able to hear you. You should be in on this podcast too. We should have had a camera for you.
I'm a background fella. Man behind the curtain.
EK is gonna play World of Warcraft while we do a podcast.
I can't.
I'm
You're
sure.
using the
I'm
computer.
He said I can't use the computer. Ha ha.
It just reminds me. Now I can't play World of Warcraft with them.
Now we can also get. What we should do is we'll cut the light off, put the red light over me so you can still see me on the camera. Then you can play Tony Hawk on the projector screen. While
That's
while
all
we
right.
do a podcast.
People who want that kind of content, they can just go over to twitch.com and search for FXBG Public Radio. It's got plenty of times with EK and I playing World of Warcraft. So
I'm about to start streaming my Fallout 4. If that's all right with you,
ever-
Scott, if you don't mind.
no, I do not mind at all. Do you ever play the original Fallout games?
I have New Vegas on my PS3.
I mean, Fallout 1, Fallout 2.
No, I played Fallout 2 like one time for a couple minutes. I remember Capital Wasteland vaguely.
Fallout 2 is probably one of my favorite games ever. It was in an era where it's like Quake and Doom. Those kind of games were like ruling the genre. And then Interplay, was it Interplay? Came out with this game, and it was a realistic role-playing game. And the kind of guy I am, I grew up playing role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
Heroes Unlimited, and stuff like that. And there were so many things that you can do depending upon your text choices, like your responses. And so it would change the direction of your character. So you can play a character every single time through that game, Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and have a different outcome every single time.
Right.
And that was very much like role-playing games. And the only thing about role-playing games is that they were better than many video games at the time.
Right. So I think that's kind of how I don't want to say fell in love with, but that's how I got into liking Dungeons and Dragons the couple times that I played it, because I had played Fallout before, and I really like the character development in Fallout, the way that the story goes. You know what I'm talking about, the way you like add your attributes and your perks and things like that. There's some similarities in that to like the personalization of your character, that aspect compared to Dungeons and Dragons, I think made me fall in love with it a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, I love making characters. When I got out of the Navy, I spent many a night just sitting there drinking and rolling up characters for my role-playing game, Heroes Unlimited, and it ended up being all the villains in my campaigns and stuff like that were characters I rolled up just because I love the idea of creating a character. And it's probably why I got into writing, and it's probably why my first book was the Bunny Years, a memoir, which you can find on Amazon.com, which is about a character I played throughout like years of playing a campaign in Heroes Unlimited.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I always liked I used to play a lot of like wrestling video games when I was a kid, and I always loved doing like the create a character. Any game that had like a create a player mode or feature, I love doing that, and I think that's why I love writing so much too, because you get to just kind of create your own universe.
So you like wrestling, huh?
I did when I was younger.
All right, and then you became heterosexual?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. I just like busting the chops of the PWO guys. You know?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's the podcast World Order, the ones that did the podcast
Yeah,
before this.
Yeah. I like busting their chops, because I liked my friends when I was in the Navy. My friends would go out and they'd go, let's go watch this wrestling match. And it was like, where? And they're like at a bar. It's like, I'm in, so and I'd sit there and I watch them watch this wrestling and like actually give a shit. And I was just like, wow, football's one thing, but wrestling.
Do you like football? You a football fan?
No, I hate football. I hate what it does to the people who play it. I hate that it breeds a culture of roided out madmen, like 6'9" guys, 300 pounds. It's terrifying if you're a cop and you don't live as an athlete, like an NFL athlete, where you're constantly in the gym, you're constantly working out, you're constantly doing your cardio. So, I mean, I can't imagine being a fat cop like myself, trying to chase down a guy like that. I think it breeds bad people, guys who slap their girlfriends in an elevator. You know what I mean?
Right. I understand what you're saying, where you're coming from. What do you
Well,
think
I think
about
that
culturally about what it breeds? I've loved football growing up in sports my whole life, but recently, since I've gotten to comedy and creating my own worlds and stuff like that, there's been less and less time for football and for outside entertainment like that. Um, but with football, and from watching my podcast and stuff that I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and you can see the cultural effects that team mentality has on the society.
Sure. I would say probably the only good thing about football is that it involves a team. It involves a team mentality. However, it is a sport about violence. It's a sport about militarism.
Yeah, maybe team mentality, maybe us versus them mentality is kind of what I meant.
What I mean when it comes to team mentality is in baseball. And I love baseball because it's not that aggressive, because the defensive team always puts the ball into play. I preferred having collisions at home plate, but I kind of like the Nerf idea of it. When baseball first started, you could throw the ball at a person, and if you hit him with it, he was out. And so it was. But then again, the balls back then were like misshapen balls of twine, so it really didn't hurt that much. Now the balls are like designed to be knocked over fences, and so they're incredibly hard. Yeah, that rant's over.
So that's what your podcast is, isn't it? Pretty much like rant, kind of
Yeah, that organized rants. I would say.
organized rants.
It's like, yeah, you caught me here 6 sheets to the wind, asking me to do this with you, and I'm glad to do it. But if I need to get up and pee or something like that, or if I say something crazy, it's probably because of the beer.
Right. You were saying before we went live that before this you were just sitting there talking to yourself.
Absolutely,
And,
that's what I call writing.
yeah, and I asked you if you talk back to yourself, which they
Absolutely.
usually say, you're not crazy if you talk to yourself. It's when you start responding that you have to worry about.
I disagree. Totally. I grew up in the '80s, and I grew up a loner, and so all I had were my Voltron uh, toys and my GI Joes, and I would make up stories for my GI Joes. I'd pull out like this big styrofoam thing that everything came in back in the day, and it'd be a base. It'd be a bit base for my GI Joes, and then Cobra's running up, and there'd be a big drama going on, and like Lady J and Duke are having an argument. It's like, it's my baby, and stuff like that. I'm the father. And I would create this kind of drama, and it's like creating characters, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to like role-playing games. Creating characters involves creating a personality, and creating another character is very much a kind of schizophrenic move.
Yeah.
In many ways. I don't know if there's an old Twilight Zone episode where this guy, he's a ventriloquist performer, and the personality of the dummy like starts taking over his mind. It's like that's kind of the limit. You need to separate the character that you create,
Right.
from yourself. and I think that I'm intelligent enough to separate the characters that I create. But
Right.
I could embody any character I play, and that comes into play when you play a role playing game like Dungeons and Dragons or Heroes Unlimited, where you can act like that character, in order to get more experience or something like that. But I mean, that's what acting is embodying something different than you. But if your character is always what's his name from Schitt's Creek, Eugene Levy's kid, if your every character is that, then that's not acting, is it?
Right. Right. uh, so I started doing the like talk to yourself, talk back kind of activity as like a not a practice, but as a like a research almost to see what it's like to be crazy, I guess, or what people, at least the mainstream, consider to be crazy. But then I started learning it is actually a really good way to create a dialogue, and
Absolutely.
and if you are intelligent enough, then you can keep aware that that's what you're doing. And then, like you said, when you go into creating other characters, playing other characters, you're cognizant enough to see where that line is between what's me and what's the role.
Absolutely. Even when drunk.
Even when drunk. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, if you play a different character or you act out a different character, you know, whether you're a comedian or an actor or even a writer, it's that when you enact this character, you need to think about how that character thinks, and it can be contrary. It oftentimes is contrary to the way you think. And so that's why I consider writing to be a place where I can sit there and I can write a question. Like I can sit there and I'll write a question, say, what is an apple? And then I'll ask all the characters in my head what what they think of when they think apple. And it could be anything from razor blades and apples. There's like apples. I bit into an apple and there was a worm in it. Witches use apples to poison people. It could be it's like apple pie is fucking delicious. It could be a myriad of opinions, and it's a way of looking at everything from every different angle. And that's kind of the advantage of that kind of perception. I think if I was playing Fallout, I would have like maxed out perception. My
like
my P in special would be capitalized.
like if life was Fallout, is that what you mean?
What I mean is I've been saving bottle caps for years and they're still worthless. This is fun. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad we're doing this too, man. I really like that background that you chose for this too.
Okay, well, I'm going to change it then because you like it.
Okay, that's fair.
All right.
That's one of my favorite movies.
You like the Warriors?
Oh yeah, I love the Warriors.
Did you see Luke Cage?
I watched. I can't remember if I finished that or not. I don't think I finished Luke Cage.
That was pretty good. They had a couple of Luke Cage had a couple of Warriors references.
Okay.
I kind of liked it, but I thought they were kind of shoehorned in. That's
Right,
it.
right.
Luke Cage, especially season 1, was an incredible series. I really loved that.
What's
But
the just what is it called? Jessica?
uh, uh,
Is it Jessica Jones?
Jessica Jones,
Okay.
that girl is hot as hell, but that what a boring ass show.
Yeah, Kristen Ritter. She's like one of my. Oh, look, it's a picture of you and EK. That's interesting.
Which one is which? That's what I want to know. What you think? Which one is which?
Either way, you both lose.
The fat one's me, obviously. Well, that's the thing between me and EK. He's like, I think I got something stuck in there. Can you be a bro?
Be a bro. He's
Like,
got your.
I
Got his back.
Eric, I will pull anything out of your ass if you need me to.
I'll let him know when he comes back in the room.
I figured he wasn't in the room because I imagined he would have laughed his ass off.
Of course, he left the room when you said that. How long were you in the Navy for?
A little over 4 years. I joined the Navy on September 11th, 1997.
Okay.
Do the math. I was supposed to get out in 4 years.
Oh wow. So you had to stay in longer because of everything that happened.
That's right. When the attack happened on September 11th, the Navy, all military services, put out a stop loss, and I was supposed to go into terminal leave that day. And so at the end of we were real busy at my command on that day. We were in the process of moving a bunch of equipment, and so much of the Navy is bringing stuff onto a ship, and so it's yeah. And so we were in the process of doing all that, but it was early in the morning. We had just taken a couple loads over to our ship, the USS Mount Whitney, and then the news started breaking. Back then, CNN was a reliable news source, and
Right.
that was on, so people can understand, keep up with what's going on. I worked in information technology, so information is key. And so, and then we said hold everything once the first plane hit, and then they said move everything back, and so the rest of the day was moving everything back, and also watching this horrible thing play out on television. But at the end of the day, they said, all right, you're all relieved, and we broke up, and it's like, you will be called, you will be contacted about what's coming next, and so forth at the end of the day. And so I went down to administration and like put in my paperwork on September 11th, 2001, to leave the Navy. And people were like, our country just got attacked. It's like, you think that, and you want to get out of the Navy? And I was like, look, what I'm good at is computers, and technology and stuff like that. And even when I got out, I worked for a defense contracting organization, and arguably I did a lot more good there than I would have done by remaining in the Navy as an E5, so.
You had a more of a lower ceiling for doing good, for the potential of doing good in the Navy because of your rank. Is that what you're saying?
Well, first of all, I didn't want to stay in the Navy. I didn't like it. They had no real outlet for uh, creative output, and I'm a creative kind of guy. I got in
Right.
trouble in the Navy because I created a fuck the Navy website, and I wrote essays about why the Navy sucks and all that. It's a good life for some people. It's a good life for somebody to experience for 4 years, like myself. I think I've been overall, it was a totally positive experience, but it wasn't the place for me to remain. And
Right.
s- and so
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. And so even when I got out, I was working for a defense contracting company, providing information. I can't say a whole lot about it, but I'm providing information
Yeah.
because, I get a security clearance. I had a security clearance. I don't think I have it now. And so it's, that's probably why right there. And so, and so, I think I did a lot more good at a higher level than I could have done as an E5 or an E6 in the Navy by staying in for another 4 years. If I stayed in for another 4 years, I probably could have made E6, but that I would also have to have been deployed, which means I would have to go out to a ship that actually went on deployment. When I was in the Navy, I never went out for more than like 2 weeks at sea.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but if I had remained in the Navy, I would have to go to a deployable command, where it's 6 month deployment, 6 months back, 6 month deployment, 6 months back.
Right. And like you said, that just wasn't for you. And it's good. It's smart that you don't force anything that's not for you, because otherwise you're going to be miserable. You're going to be resentful of the situation you're in and of yourself too in the long run.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I started writing. Um, when I was in the Navy, it's like people were always constantly telling me, it's like, why did you write this? Why did you say this that way? Why did you do that? And I'm just the kind of guy who has to get that out. And because I was so stifled while I was in the Navy and even afterwards in the civilian sector, where this is the early 2000s, and this is when all this political correctness started coming into play, and it's like, you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't write this, you can't write that. And I was like, I'm sorry, I have to say these things that are in my head, or else I'm going to go crazy. And
Yeah.
that's why I ended up writing a book. That's why I ended up being a podcaster. That's why I ended up being a YouTuber, is because if I don't say this stuff, I will go crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's all just spinning up here, and you got to get it. You got to get it
Absolutely.
off your chest.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Scott. I think that's another reason why I started doing comedy too. And a lot of comedians turn usually pain and turmoil, dysfunction from their life into humor, uh, as opposed to just letting it sit up here and boil and stew and
Uh,
ultimately go crazy.
you like Sam Kennison, right?
He's not one of my favorites, but I like Sam Kinison. I don't hate Sam Kinison.
Fair enough. He had a head injury
Yeah,
when he was a kid, and it completely changed his personality. And I think it turned him into a kind of a gave him a, like kind of Tourette's. That's why what all the yelling was about, I think. That being said, is that I think that 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 blow to the head, it put something in him where his filter was broken,
right.
where I can freely say what's going on in my mind. And a lot of that is what writing is about and what comedy is about. Is like, if I can freely say or write what is in my mind, then I can make amazing things. It's like I always say, it's like, write drunk, edit sober.
I like that policy.
I do too. It's what I live by.
I don't drink a lot. I come from a long line of alcoholics. I grew up in a household of alcoholics, and it was
Same.
very chaotic and stressful and dysfunctional. So I'm not a big fan of alcohol, but I have. There's definitely been times that I've considered leaning on it to help me write. Do you
Um,
think it helps you?
yeah. I think I get into a frame of mind usually early in the morning when I wake up and I'm like, taking that first poop of the day. Something funny will come to me, and I'll just like type something in my phone, or I'm a fan of index cards. I keep them around everywhere I sit,
Yeah.
and so I'll write down a note or something like that, and it's something I can expand on later or write upon later. Early in the morning, I tend to get a little bit of inspiration, but if I get like six beers, 6 to 8, how many? Let's say 10 beers in me, and that's kind of rewarding as well, because if you've ever been to a bar and there's some really loose lip guy and he's cracking everybody up, and everything he says is like golden nugget, golden nugget, golden nugget, and people are like, hey, you should be a comedian, and he needs that golden hour between 5 and 6 beers where he's on point. you
Right.
know you don't you're not necessarily a comedian if you're funny between 5 and 6 beers. You need to be funny throughout the day. And so I think that comedy is something that you wake up thinking. It's like, when I wake up in the morning, it's the only thing that like gets me out of bed, because like you said, a lot of comedy comes from pain and hardship. The only thing that gets me out of bed is like, what are these ridiculous humans going to show me today? What ridiculous thought am I going to have today? you
Right.
know I can't wait to see what today holds in that regard.
And it makes life a lot easier to live when you look at it through that lens too.
You got to laugh to keep from crying, my friend.
Yes. I was talking to somebody about that the other day who I don't think they're necessarily trying to pursue comedy as like a lifetime career or anything like that, but they've recently started toying with writing comedy and doing open mics. And they
Yeah.
just said starting to look at things through that lens and constantly be on that frame and looking at things through that prism, that it's just made life so much easier to live.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's
Because you can just make light of anything, especially the bullshit, the what normally is negative, or you know.
Well, especially what is negative. You know, I don't know how many times you can laugh at a Hitler joke, you know, or or a Holocaust joke. I mean, I'm not trying to say that those are always the best, but I mean, it's cathartic when there's a pain associated with a subject, you
Yeah.
know, then there's a lot of catharsis that could be released through a joke, you
Yep.
know. I think it was George Orwell. Was it George Orwell that said within every joke is a tiny revolution? And I think that there's a purpose to that. And when it comes to comedy, is like comedy is the pressure valve of the people, you know.
Right.
And so when Dave Chappelle comes out there and tells you about the Juicy Smollett, you know, story, there's a lot of catharsis being released through that joke,
Right.
you know, that whole bit, you know. And
Because
so
we can all
it's
kind of look at each other and go, "Okay, we're all laughing
yeah,
together."
exactly. And so, because there's that's kind of the genius of Dave Chappelle, is that he really isn't a person who sees race. He sees the commonality between us all. It's like we can all look at that story and say, bullshit, you know?
Right. Yeah, I love Chappelle. He's one of my favorites. That's
Of course.
Chappelle, Rogan, and Bill Hicks are probably my top three.
Uh, Bill Hicks is good. I'm a real big fan of Carlin, George Carlin. I'm that guy was a genius. God rest his soul.
Oh yeah, definitely. 100%. And
I Go ahead. Go ahead.
a lot of respect to Carlin too, because he put out so many specials. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he cranked it out. I mean, he was a producer. I mean, he that's the thing when it comes to modern comedians and modern podcasters and stuff like that. You if you keep putting out content, you know, you're going to hit sooner or later. And
Yeah.
uh, I heard a music producer talk of Queen saying, "It's like I've never seen a more prolific and talented band that produced so fast." And when you talk about like Queen between 1977 and like 19 let's say 88, they put out so many albums in comparison to like every other so many bands in that era. You know, some bands would take like a year to put out an album. And when you're a comedian, if you're a Joe Rogan type comedian, you want to put out a special, excuse me, you want to put out a special about every year, but you want to, you know, work to that level, work to an album level. Say you need 12 tracks, but you got a year to write 12 tracks. Then, you know, it's a difficult task. And thinking about Queen doing that, it's like, wow, wow. What were you talking about?
So you were in the Navy, and one of your favorite bands is Queen. Is that what you're telling me, Scott?
When I went in the Navy, I was mostly chanting Dave Matthews Band songs when I was marching, because you did so much marching when you go to boot camp. You know, you and so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 all day long. And then you'd have another division walking by, and they have a different cadence. They're on a different step. They're on the half step, you know. And so I'm like, then I'll be singing a Dave Matthews Band song, 2-step, in my head, just to keep myself from going crazy, just counting to 4 over and over again.
Do you play any instruments?
I play the drums.
Oh, you.
I dabble in guitar and ukulele.
I was trying to learn the drums recently. At the last place I was staying at, they had a drum set, and I was just kind of starting to get the hang of it, and then I had to move. So I had to, whatever, I haven't been able to practice for a while.
Well, here's the trick:
Bo, come here,
bass, bass on 1 and 3, snare
buddy.
on 2 and 4.
Yeah, and that's what I was working on. It's just a matter of moving my hands and my feet independently of each other.
What's funny is that marching had a percussive quality to it. it really helped my percussion. I played drums before I went in the Navy, and so when I went in the Navy, they would have these cadences that would mimic percussion, obviously. And so it'd be one a unit, a two and a three and a four, you know, and it's all in 16th notes or eighth notes above the one, two, three, four. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you read music or?
No, I don't know how to read music.
Okay.
It's funny though, because actually after I did that, when I was going for jogs and stuff, I would count my steps when I was running as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's something about that that just kind of makes it easier. You're only taking 4 steps. You're not taking 400 or whatever it is.
Well, I guess the argument is like, why isn't when you march, why isn't it just 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2? And I just have to say it's because even in the military, that's boring.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's just too boring. One,
And
2, 3, 4. I feel like I can do that for a while.
I'm sure there are plenty of people who are marching with me in the Navy who would count every single step instead of going 1 2 3 4. They're 5 6 7 8 9. They'll keep going, and it's like there's 777 steps to the mess hall.
That'd be insane. But yeah, I'm sure there are some people that are that meticulous and that analytical.
A lot of insane people went in the military, by the way.
You think so?
I've been in the military. I know so. I know so. But what's interesting about the military is that it gives you this place where you can you act one way and be another, and when you go home at the end of the day, if you live off base or something like that, it was like, even if you live on base, it's like that's your own place. And I remember when I first became an NCO, which is a non-commissioned officer, when I made E4, I got moved to this nicer barracks. And the first room I got into, you get to share a room with only one other dude, which was awesome because previously it was like 4 other dudes at least, I'm sorry, 3 other dudes at least. On a ship, you're with everybody. But
right.
I moved to this barracks and there was only one other roommate, and I came in and I started moving my stuff into the room, and the whole time he's just laying face down on his rack watching porn the entire time. He's like, "Hey man, you like porn?" I was like, yeah, I guess. Let's talk about porn. You like watching this porn? I got other porns.
Just obsessed, huh?
Yeah. And so
it's a good way to fry your brain.
Well, it's a good way to tell you maybe I need another room.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, seriously, he had a pillow under his crotch and like one under his head, and just sit there, just grinding, just, you like porn, looking at you. You like this porn? I got other porns.
God damn, man.
The military is a weird place.
No, I imagine so. It's a melting pot. It's got to be. And there's no way to fully there's no way to fully vet everybody, and a lot of crazy people are intelligent and know how to duck the system.
Well, I wouldn't say it's ducking the system as it is so much as that everybody who ends up in boot camp, if you end up there, that means you passed all the medical and psychological and even background checks that is involved. Everybody who's there has passed all that. And so you're dealing with a baseline of people. It's like there's a lot of people who don't meet that baseline. And it's sad. I felt bad because when I joined the Navy, there was this other guy who was going in, but he had real bad arches on his feet, and they wouldn't let him in. And so I felt bad for him, because this is he wanted this to be his path to a lucrative career. It's the same kind of thing that I wanted when I went in. Is like I wanted to get an education and I wanted to get away from my parents. I wanted to see the world.
Right.
And so I felt bad about those people who got like kicked out right away. But then again, those people you were in boot camp with met the baseline. That means it's it's actually kind of hard to get into the Navy. And so all those people who met that baseline, even out of those, like for example, it's 100 people. Once you get into a division, you got 100 people in there. And we graduated like 68, 69, something like that. What were you talking about?
Uh, we were talking about how you said you would pick anything out of EK's ass if he needed
These are
you
not
to.
true statements.
He did say that earlier.
EK, if you needed me to do that.
We were talking about the monkey picture behind him.
If push came to shove, if he had no one else to call. Am I right?
Yeah.
EK's like, I guess.
That's what.
How long have you and Eric been working together?
Oh shit. Working together more than a decade.
Really?
Yeah.
How long have you guys known each other?
More than a decade.
I want to say about 15 years.
How'd y'all meet? What'd y'all start? What was the first kind of project y'all started doing? Was it podcast here or doing like sound?
I think. No, Heroes.
It was Heroes Unlimited, playing role playing games. It was just hanging out.
Nerds.
Yeah, yeah. You're one too. I don't give a shit.
I
The,
definitely came in here the other day, saw the like tetrahedron die, and told him that I would play. Is he mad that I said tetrahedron? Tetrahedron?
dodecahedron
Dodecahedron.
is a 12-sided die.
Poly was also appropriate.
Whatever.
Ollie wants a cracker.
I've been reading this book and it's about sacred geometry and stuff, so they keep talking about tetrahedrons and so on and so forth.
You like the pyramid theory that like you put a piece of fruit under a pyramid and it doesn't rot as fast? What do you believe about that?
Yeah, we were talking about that recently. There's a lot of weird like properties about the pyramids. This book that I'm reading, actually the chapter that I'm in right now is about sacred geometry and about the platonic shapes, I think.
Platonic solids.
Platonic solids, yes. But I don't know, man. There's definitely something to that. There's something to energy fields and I don't know, man.
Yeah, science.
Science, yeah.
Who knows?
Or magic.
Or magic. Or you could be an experiment or a mutant. You never know.
It's magic until they call it science. No, I've seen some weird. I used to watch a lot of Ancient Aliens. Obviously that's one of those things you take with a grain of salt. Everything they talk. Ancient alien theorists say that. But there are some weird things on that show that they do bring up. But I remember them talking about the Coral Castle guy.
Yeah.
And
in Florida, yeah.
And him knowing about, he knew the secrets of how they built the pyramids. And in that episode, they kind of talk about like the properties of the pyramid, and it's like electromagnetic field. I've seen like a thing, I don't remember what it was that I saw. They had like a pyramid that was made out of like copper, right? It was just like bars, right? And they put it in some machine or some apparatus, and it kind of started like levitating and spinning and rotating. And on Ancient Aliens, they were like, "Does this mean that the pyramids are spaceships?" But I definitely think that ancient civilizations had some metaphysical understandings that we don't, some better understandings of energy and the earth and those sorts of properties and how to use those to their benefit to construct things or whatever, man.
Sure, but we have to understand that the Earth's magnetic field has changed a lot.
Yep, that's true too.
especially when you consider how long humans may have been a species on this earth.
Right.
You know, in the Bible, they talk about like it's a controversial subject, but they talk about that hominids like us, may have existed alongside dinosaurs. And if you ever ate a bucket of chicken, I think there's your proof.
Yeah. Have you ever been around live chickens?
Yeah,
They're
they're hate
def-
they're hateful.
they're definitely little dinosaurs, man. They
Absolutely.
have little reptile brains.
Have you ever kicked a chicken?
No, but they're
Keep spending time with them.
they're
You will.
they're not they're not scared of like my dog. You know what I mean? Like if I take my dog over to my dad's house where he has chickens, they'll buck up on him and run up on him and run him off.
Absolutely.
They're very lizard brained,
Absolutely.
and I mean a lot of scientists say that they think that dinosaurs were more bird like, that they had feathers, and that
Absolutely. Yeah.
chickens are a descendant of the dinosaurs, especially if you look at their claws and their feet.
Well, some people say that the fossils that say that the dinosaurs had scales were actually like short feathers, like early feathers. They're not like birds today where the feathers are real long. They're just really, really short, and so they're almost huggable.
Right.
If you saw a dinosaur with like a brontosaurus with a bunch of feathers on it, you're just like, oh, I want to hug it.
Until
Until they eat you.
yeah.
Oh, it's a brontosaurus. He doesn't care about me.
Until
He wants to eat the tree.
right. Until a gang of velociraptors comes around the corner.
Exactly. And chooses to kill you instead of the brontosaurus because you're the
Right.
easier prey.
But yeah, I'm definitely into like, especially when it comes to ancient Egypt, the pyramids, things of that nature. There's this really interesting YouTube video on this channel called After School about Tesla and the pyramids. And basically what they talk about is this idea that, because the pyramids isn't four-sided, it's eight-sided, right? So it's octagonal. And inside, that causes like a certain acoustic frequency. You and I both know that when they build churches and certain sacred sites, that they build
Yes.
them for a certain frequency.
They even did that in the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah, that resonance is, everything vibrates. That's part of the spirit, the all source God, whatever you want to call it, Allah, whatever. Flying spaghetti monster. It's it's a vibration. It's a frequency. And in this video, they talk about, it's like a theory that the Egyptians were using the pyramids to kind of recreate the death experience, or like recreate the Big Bang experience through like resonant frequency, so that I guess it would almost be like, a psychedelic experience when you go in there, and be like an ego dissolution or something along those lines.
That's cute.
Yes, you're cute. Show me your butt. What do you think it is then, Mr. Scientist?
I think that humans were figuring out music as well as they were figuring out logic.
Yeah.
I think that people like it when a guitar is played inside, inside the pyramid. The acoustics are good. That's why amphitheaters were built in Rome.
You think the pyramids are a concert
Greece.
hall?
I think it's a concert hall.
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Okay, I mean, but some of the concepts that I was talking about, it makes sense though, right? Do you think that it's a spiritual concert hall, that there is a spiritual aspect to it?
I think that
mystic?
cultures, especially around that era, were especially susceptible to the power of music.
Yeah.
People would in Japan, for example, it's like they would tune swords. There are people who would tune swords. I'm not trying to get all Alex Jones in here, but they would tune swords to a certain pitch.
No, that's really interesting. I've never heard that before.
Really? I think I probably just made it up.
Uh, there's another culture I can't think exactly. I want to say it's like somewhere like Nepal or somewhere kind of like that. Um,
I don't
but
say that. China's going to shut this video down.
it could. It's either like one of those type of countries or like a South American country. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember. But they believe that like existence, like the universe is a dance. That
Oh,
everything is a dance,
oh, definitely.
and that that would make the Big Bang right a giant music note that's
Well,
infinitely expanding.
I think that the Big Bang is a sneeze by God that turns into a song, and that's the rhythm of the universe, and it's like everything moves according to the laws of our dimensions. You
Right.
know, in our three dimensions, it's like everything moves according to these laws, and in many ways, you can argue that that's a rhythm. That is the percussion of the universe, and it's just waiting for our song. And our song is your comedy and my podcast. And that
Yeah. Or you're writing. We're all singing the song. Everybody's
absolutely.
we're co-creators in this existence in the universe.
And we can all contribute a verse.
We're all we're all made in God's image, or as Gnostics say, we're God's brothers. Like we're it's a on the seventh day he rested, it's our turn now that the reins are handed over to us to kind of help finish in the job of creation.
Okay, I'm done with that. And you can ask yourself, is like, did God come to Earth to be, um, so that God could become man, or is it so that man can become like God?
I think it's because when you're as infinite as God that you would get bored with it. So what you would do, right? Since you're a creator, you used to sit around rolling your dice all night making characters. That's basically what God would do. And he would make all these different versions of himself, and the first thing he would do is make them all forget that they're God, that they're an extension of the infinite consciousness. And
Still listening. Spill the beer.
I don't know. I think that's kind of the ultimate. It's just kind of the ultimate joke. It's a joke on yourself.
Okay, you want to get Joe Rogan with this?
Yeah, Joe Rogan, Duncan Trussell.
All right.
That's my realm.
Um, People who say that there is no God, people who are adverse to God, the concept of God, probably do not understand at all what God is. And I'm one of those people. I don't know what God is.
Yeah, because if
You
you
know,
understood what God was, it would make your fucking head explode. O- Only God can comprehend God.
absolutely. And so,
And
but you,
all of this, I just want to say, I'm only calling it God for to go with the mainstream. I usually refer to it as the all source, the infinite consciousness, the universe.
yeah, the all spark. I get it. And
Yeah.
so it's you can name it whatever you want, but you cannot look at this universe and look at it and say this is beautiful. And then you realize, who can see that it's beautiful? Does a wolf see that? Does Bo see that the universe is beautiful? You know, who can see that other than us as human beings? You look at the universe, you can look at Saturn or you can look at Venus and say, that's a fucking beautiful looking planet. Wouldn't want to go there, but it looks nice. Does Saturn have an Instagram account?
What are you getting at, though? Do you think that? I think that all of these things. I mean, the couch, everything in here is a product of something natural, and therefore I believe it's all in the mind of the all, and it's all a product of the infinite consciousness.
Sure. I think the couch and everything that's in that studio with you was forged in the heart of our star. in the heart of the sun. Absolutely, I believe that, and I believe that everything that's been forged in the heart of that star has some sort of connection to each other, and that's the way that matter works. That's the way that gravity works. It's like it all interacts
No.
with each other. Wow, I'm
Sorry, I
really
was talking. Sorry, I was saying no to the dog, not you.
right.
So yeah, with all that being said, do you think that it has? Does that mean that all of it has a sentience or a consciousness or a perspective?
Well, how can you look at something that beautiful and not say that it wasn't designed? And it's kind of unique as us as humans to be able to look at something and even ask that question. And being able to ask that question is, I don't know, kind of proof of maybe there's a plan to this. You know what it is. Who only knows? That's between you and God, or you and the simulation,
Right,
depending upon
you in the
what
simulation. Yeah,
between depending upon how you look at it. The best thing about not being God or not being the architect in Matrix, it's the best thing about those roles is that it's not up to me,
right,
to
right.
judge you.
Yeah, it takes a lot of burden off my shoulder.
Absolutely, and you need to let that go. In many ways, it's like there's a lot of injustices that happen in this world, and you're just like, it's like, I gotta let that go. I gotta let that go. You know, whether it's somebody saying something racist or that you see as racist, or hateful, or just a guy cutting you off on the highway. You know, you, you got to let it go.
Yeah, what Jesus said, turn the other cheek, right?
Absolutely, but I think just Jesus was just saying, just shaking his head in disappointment, just this world.
Yeah, yeah.
as you as you're getting bitch slapped. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? All right, man. You need to be entertaining for a little bit. I need to pee.
All right, I'll just talk to EK. EK, how you doing? What game are you playing over there?
Animal Crossing.
Oh, is it fun?
I don't know.
Now that's the Switch
Yeah, this
that
is
you're
the
playing that on?
Switch. Animal Crossing is like the new hit game where like you can get your own private island and you can build a house and it's a whole it's a lot of chores. They turn chores into a game. I'm not sure why people have so much fun playing this.
That's like the Fallout 4 though. There's so much like keep up you have to do with all your little like settlements and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Right now, I'm going around an island. I'm chopping trees. I'm picking weeds, and I can sell the weeds, and I can craft with the wood. It's like
Sims was the
Minecraft,
same way though. Like if your Sims were stupid, they would like burn the house down.
right?
Like
You got to get their skills up
you
before
know
they
what I
do
mean? You got to have like all the right. You got to set things up for them right
it.
so they don't just totally fail at life.
And then even if you set them up right, they still totally fail at life.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm running out of beer.
That's sad, man. I'm sorry. Thoughts and prayers.
Well,
You know this podcast probably isn't getting a lot of engagement because my top commenter isn't watching the live stream right now.
what?
I said this podcast probably isn't getting a lot of engagement because my top commenter isn't watching the live stream right now.
Oh, you mean me?
Yeah.
Oh,
You're usually all over my podcast.
well, I I got a lot of things. I got a lot of things to say in retrospect.
Well, I've noticed that too, and you're 24 hours after me. So has something stupid I've ever said on my podcast sparked a conversation or a topic for you to rant on?
Oh no,
No, I don't
no,
inspire you.
no. I'll be right back.
You just don't want to give me that. You just don't want to give me the credit, huh? I like how he left again. He's like, I gotta go.
Gotta
He's going to text EK. The fuck is this guy's problem? The ego on this dude.
What do you expect? I spilled a beer.
Spill the beer. Is
Caught
that, what,
me
is that what he said?
Yeah, he said
nine
he
nine
spilled beer.
sheets to the wind.
9 sheets to the wind. That means something else in my friend group, but
So, no, generally your podcasts do not inspire me to write anything, and I mean no insult by it.
I only asked that. I didn't mean it like an egotistical way. Like, do I inspire you, Scott? It's only because you're commenting. So I've seen you comment a lot on my podcast. So I'm wondering if there's been like, shit. Well, I want to talk about this on my show. You know what I mean? This kind of sparked something.
It's more about supporting the other creators that are
Synergy.
here at FXPG Public Radio. I think that even the evolution of Shock Monkey Radio has been built upon our decade, EK's and I's decade of running that show, and getting lessons learned every single podcast, and it's given me a decade of experience when it comes to like creating content for either a podcast or a YouTube channel. And so you have to I guess you level up,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
a good way to say it.
yeah.
Podcasting has helped me a lot too. I feel like just being conversational helps me because I'm honestly not the most social guy, even though I'm a comedian. Other people that I actually hang out with and spend time with would tell you I'm social, and maybe I am when I get around people, but for the most part, I try to keep to myself, and I can be antisocial. So it's just a good exercise of running my mouth for when I get on stage with a microphone in front, and it's also a good practice for just kind of lowering this veil of I'm on camera, I have a microphone in front of my face.
Yeah, I'm far more comfortable in front of a camera than I am in front of however many people are watching this right now. If I were in a room with all the people who ever watched this video, I would be nervous as fuck because people drive me crazy. If I'm alone here in my basement, I don't care. I feel like I can say whatever I want.
Right.
There have been other comedians who have come through FXPG Public Radio. Most of them not as good as you, but it's they've asked me, it's like, why don't you like go into stand-up comedy, because you're kind of funny and you have a little bit of charm to you. And I was just like, well, I can't. I'm always funny in retrospect, but it's like it takes me time to figure out the perfect retort to something somebody said, you know. And so if I watch a YouTube video, it's like I watch a Tim Pool video, and then I come up with a smart ass answer, and like a bunch of people like it and stuff like that, and I get 2 new subscribers or something like that. And so it's I don't really think on my feet as well as a lot of comedians do. And so I prefer to write in that kind of context. I'd rather have a framework. I don't know if you've read my notes on the private group where I put my notes for the shows for Shock Monkey Radio, but I have this framework. I was like, this is kind of the thing I want to say, but then part of it is improv, and improv in many ways is what I lack. And so there's kind of a balance that you need to take as a comedy writer in terms of the joke you write and how you perform it.
Yeah, 100%. And you need to be kind of like in your head. If you're saying the joke in your head as you write it, you need to be saying it the way that you will say it on stage.
Well, sure, but even if you need to edit the joke in order to get to the crux of the joke, in order for the sake of time or for the sake, because if you like, if somebody says you got 15 minutes, it's like, well, I got 20 minutes of jokes here that I want to do tonight. It's just like, you got to edit a little bit. And so even as a comedian, it's like you probably got to edit on the fly. You got to write on the fly.
Yeah.
And I'm not really good at that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'm better at editing on my own time and writing on my own time.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that though either. Um it, it gives you more space and room to work. And that and if you can avoid the stress and the pressure of doing comedy and or writing in that forum the way that you're talking about, that quick pace of having to edit on the fly, if you can avoid that stress, then avoid it. Same as getting out of the Navy. You know what I mean? There's no reason to put that pressure on yourself if you don't have to.
Absolutely. And it's kind of what I love about writing is that you can craft this perfect retort, even if it's like 3 years later. I remember
Do you think you could ever be a public speaker in the same like faculties that Henry Rollins does public speaking?
Henry Rollins?
Henry Rollins used to be a lead singer for a band called Black Flag, and now he does like public speaking.
I'm insulted.
Like motivational public speaking.
Yeah.
Positivity.
Yeah, kind of. It's not like motivation. I mean, kind of. But he kind of mixes some jokes and stuff in there too. Why are you insulted, Scott?
I'm insulted that you didn't know what you thought. I don't know what Black Flag was. Anyway, so
you were talking about how much you love Queen earlier, so
you think I stopped listening to music after 1986? Get out of here, man. So it's
well, you dress like it.
Ow. That's a sick burn. Somebody clip that. Anyway, so
you dress like you're auditioning for George Zimmerman.
Hey, man. you called me. All right, motherfucker. You called me.
EK called you. Synergy.
Anyway, what was your stupid fucking question?
I can't remember what it was. What were we talking about?
No, I don't think that I could be a Henry Rollins that like goes around like motivationally speaking to people. I don't think that that's in my wheelhouse.
Your wheelhouse? You think the podcast is your niche?
I think that that in many ways I'm like Alex Jones or Gavin McInnes, is like these kind of people who speak their mind and say what's on their mind. It's like I'm not sitting here intentionally trying to be provocative. I'm just sitting here saying what's on my mind, talking to somebody. Like if I was with my best friend, Scott, if I were with you right now, we'd be sitting there, we'd be smoking and joking, and we'd have a very similar conversation.
Yeah.
Believe me.
I believe that.
I don't censor myself on my channel. I don't censor myself anywhere I go. And that has caused me a shitload of problems when it comes to the Navy, when it comes to being in a defense contracting job afterwards. So, I mean, and even in life now in this modern era in 2020, you know, I say what's on my mind. And it's like, I don't want anyone telling me that I can't say this because I need to say this or else I will go crazy and I will become Barry Sanchez permanently. You don't want that. Trust me.
No, I do trust you, bud.
All right. Can you loan me $10?
No. I imagine that you actually... I live at the fucking studio, dude. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm glad it's you, more not me.
I mean, I figured we're only one podcast. This is the first podcast since, but I mean, I figure people will find out sooner or later. But yeah.
All right. Well, are you going to disinfect that couch? What's going on with all the...
on that couch?
Are you going to disinfect this couch?
Well, I mean, if anything's going to capture a virus, it would be that couch.
It's the casting call couch. For when you wear your blonde wig and come over on Tuesday nights.
Where did I put that blonde wig? It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been in the studio.
Oh
So,
man.
so you don't like Queen? What's up with that?
No, I like Queen. I'm just teasing you, bud.
Uh,
You were teasing me before the podcast about what was that thing you kept saying about stupid people who are interesting.
oh yeah, dumb people. They're the world's full. Like 50% of people are dumb. You know, and I would say I'm in the 60 to 70% range when it comes to intelligence. But at least 50% of the people are dumb. And you got to admit that if you're making a division between the people in the world, there's like smart people and dumb people. There's at least 50% of them that are dumb. All right. And so,
Also, person is smart, people are stupid.
yeah, that's a different
Masses
topic.
get dumb.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But if you like taking individuals, at least half of them are dumb. All right. Just by making a division. That being said, 75% of the people in the world are interesting. And that's because even 50% of the dumb people, excuse me, are interesting. But that 25% of people who are dumb and uninteresting drive me crazy. Those are the people who piss me off the most. I wanted to punch a kid this weekend, a 10-year-old kid. I wanted to punch him
Why?
because he's doing 10-year-old kid shit and he never had a dad, apparently.
Oh.
Well, it's sad. It's sad that a kid looks up to a stranger nearby him as this is like, that's a man. I want to get to know him, so I need to relate to him in some way. I
Yeah.
find that sad.
I would never look at you like that.
Exactly. What a dumb 10-year-old.
What a dumb stupid kid. That's how I feel about EK's kid when he's like, I like it when you're here, Scott. I'm like, why?
Dog.
I hate my reflection. I'm so glad there's not a mirror in the bathroom. What are you talking about? I haven't seen my face in days.
It shows.
Are you a fan of Alex Jones? You kept comparing yourself to him.
No, I like.
Did you used to be a fan of Alex Jones until he got all like Trumpy?
No, I don't like Alex Jones. I never liked Alex Jones. And confidentially, I never liked Donald Trump. I think The Apprentice was a shitty show. I think Donald Trump is a douchebag, and but he's the kind of douchebag we need. It's like the end of the Dark Knight, Batman: The Dark Knight.
So, what do you think about COVID, the World Health Organization, Bill Gates?
Did you want to talk about the WHO?
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say. And actually,
Didn't you have a video deleted recently?
I did. It was only 4 minutes and 12 seconds in. It got pulled off YouTube. I saw that on YouTube Studio today. 4 minutes, 12 seconds in, we got pulled last week.
What was the content of that video?
I cannot remember what we were talking about that early. I mean, it was probably...
It didn't get pulled from Facebook?
Didn't get pulled from Facebook. It got pulled from YouTube, though.
4 minutes in.
4 minutes and 12 seconds in.
I think you're probably talking about the WHO,
Yeah.
and
What just popped up over there?
which YouTube has recently announced that any kind of content on YouTube about COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus that doesn't align with the opinion of the WHO, the World Health Organization, will be removed.
Wow.
Yeah, the censorship is real. I don't know if you read that post I made on Facebook when you posted that, but the censorship is real, and so I guess I'm lucky because I tend to graze past the coronavirus thing on my show and the COVID-19 thing on my show. I just graze past it because generally the whole conversation about it is just driving me nuts because I mean we're all going to get it. So
Yeah. So what do you think about Are you a conspiracy theorist at all?
Yes.
Do you pay attention to conspiracy theories? You're
Yes.
conscious of them.
Yes.
What do you think about, what is it, QAnon? That's the one that they're talking about right now.
Tell me more.
I think that's the theory. That's the name for the theory that that this is all some plot to like this is Donald Trump saving. He's gonna round up all the pedophiles. He's rounding up the satanic pedophile cabal, the globalists that run the world. That's why Tom Hanks is stuck in Australia, and such and such is getting coronavirus because they're a pedophile and this is their choice. You either
Well, sure. Such and such is a very, very reliable source. So it's
thank you.
yeah, no problem. I read such and such.com as well. So I mean, it's
Is that what you're gonna name your next book?
such and such.com.
Such and such.com.
I'm not writing anymore. What are you talking about? You think I made any money? I made more money doing this. Anyway, so it's here's the thing. It's like when 9/11 happened, there's a bunch of conspiracy theories that came out. And it's like I'm sure you've heard them all. The Pentagon, the World Trade Center, all that stuff. There's a bunch of conspiracy theories coming out. And having actually worked in the military with a security clearance, I'm going to tell you, people do not work together that well. Nobody can keep a secret like that, a secret that big, quiet for long. More people keep secrets about Joe Biden fingering them. All right.
Do you think he's a pedophile?
Biden?
Yeah. You think he's friends with Epstein and the boys?
Possibly. I think that guy somebody needs to get you remember those old shows where they have the hook that come out on the stage?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to do that to Joe Biden.
I mean, he's definitely a kid sniffer, and that's like a.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody walked in here and started sniffing EK's kid, we would probably run them all out of here, whoop their ass.
Absolutely. And
yeah, we would feed them to Bo.
But I'm not trying to hurt Joe Biden. That guy's on his way out.
Yeah.
I feel bad that he's losing his mind. Every time I see a clip or a gaffe of him, I'm just like, that poor guy.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, Trump's had some very strange pictures and scenes with his daughter and been accused of very similar things as Joe Biden. He's also had some momentary lapses in intelligence, like myself.
If you were as rich as Joe Biden or Donald Trump, wouldn't you be sniffing young girls? I mean, they're old guys.
Not my daughter, and not girls that were younger than 18.
Fair enough. But I mean,
I'm willing to admit that I'm a pervert. That's why I'm not running for president. And if I did, I wouldn't try to hide any of the fucked up shit that I've ever represented myself as. I'm like, this is who I am.
I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a good man. I'm not saying that. I really dislike the guy. I really hate him. But he's the Dark Knight we need, not the Dark Knight we want. You know what I mean? And I think it has to do with the fact that he's willing to speak out against this kind of censorship. And it's like the people who are protesting, going out to the beaches and stuff right now. I think those people, Trump's got their back. It's like, we got to restart the economy. We got to start moving again. We got to start infecting each other, which is a horrible thing to say, but we got to start infecting each other like Sweden has. We got to reach herd immunity.
Right, like chickenpox parties.
Yeah, did that happen to you when you were a kid?
No,
like,
but I know I understand the concept. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, when I got chickenpox, I was sent to a friend's house. It's like they got chicken pox. We want, and everyone was there. You know, all the kids were there. It's like, let's get the chicken pox right away. I mean, it was so bad. The chicken pox. I had a chicken pox right here on my eyelid,
Oh,
and oh, it was impossible to sleep.
that's the worst.
Yeah, that's where I met Barry Sanchez.
Uh, this has been fun, Scott.
Oh, are we done? Has it been 3 hours, Joe?
I don't know how long we've been doing this. I have done some long ones before, though.
That's what she said.
That
Hour and
is
15 minutes.
that is what she always says.
We did a 4-hour podcast one time, I think, didn't we? Or about just about.
I think it was early on.
Yeah. How long do you usually go, Scott?
I go about an hour.
About
I'm all
an
right.
hour.
I got another beer. I got another beer.
Got another beer. What time is it, EK?
Uh,
I usually do my podcast at 6, dude. This is much later than I even.
Well, you got to drive home. I understand.
I know, and I had this beer too.
Oh, it's like, is it one of those stupid beers that Eric has?
It's one of these Coors Lights.
Ugh.
Official sponsor of the Notcast.
Silver bullet you shoot yourself with.
I'm about to get. I have a sponsor, but so it's this company called Glow Fuck Yourself. They make sex toys like butt plugs and such, but he's kind of like home production, so he's not doing anything right now because he's been busy watching his kids because of the quarantine. So once everything lifts, that's when he's going to start making products again. Then he's going to start mailing me products to do like box openings on my show.
Did you say glow? Fuck yourself?
Glow Fuck Yourself. Look it up on Facebook.
I'll pass.
They have like 90,000 or they have a large amount of followers.
See, I don't like being fucked. I like fucking.
So they sell a lot of like butt plugs and stuff. They've sold butt plugs that have like bongs on them. They've also sold. I've also seen them with. I think the first one that he made was a butt plug that had like a door stopper on it. You know that you go. The one that you like flick. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Hold on.
The
No,
kid's not outside
I
the
don't
door.
put stuff in my butt.
Huh?
A door stopper.
Yeah.
I don't put stuff in my butt. That does remind me of a story I heard on Gavin McInnes' show, where when he was a kid and it's like, we're gonna give you a wedgie. They went to this one kid and it's like, we're gonna give you a wedgie, and the teacher caught him. You know, and Karen grabbed them and was like, I'm dragging you down the office, and they went in the vice principal's office, and the vice principal said, "What now, Karen?" And so Karen said, these two boys were about to shove a wedge of wood into another boy's butt. It's like, Karen, I got this. It's called a wedgie. I got this. That's the end of my story.
At like Spotsylvania High School a couple years ago, they were hazing. Like the football team was hazing one of the kids, and they stuck a broomstick up the kid's ass. Do y'all remember hearing about that?
I do remember hearing about that. They talked about it on one of the podcasts.
And then they made there's like a show on ABC or NBC or something like that called like American Crime or something. It's kind of like an anthology series where every season they talk like a different crime story. But one season was about like the football team who hazed the kid and stuck a broomstick up his ass. So I'm guessing that was adapted from Spotsylvania. Or it's just something that happens more often than I'd like to imagine.
I heard rumors about that. I graduated Chancellor High School in 1995, and I heard rumors about that even then.
Damn.
Right. Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school, EK?
All over the place.
You didn't go to school around here?
I graduated from Cortland, but I also went to Luray High School. I went to Mount Carmel Christian Academy. It was another high school, private high school.
Is that where you got your basketball scholarship before they sent you to play for Duke?
Yeah.
Where you scored 3,000 3-pointers in 3 years?
I like to keep that part of my life private.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did all the boosters from Duke, that's the ones who gave you the hat collection that you have in your room?
I'm not allowed to talk about it.
You signed non-disclosure agreements?
Well, Spud Webb had a lawsuit
Did he really?
against DK.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not a lot of people know that. So did Muggsy Bogues.
Muggsy Bogues, exactly.
Yep,
It's almost a class
Well,
action.
that was because I'm taller, and he refused to pay me after the bet.
That's right. I remember.
I thought it was for character impersonation.
I've never done blackface.
You were in a frat. They got a picture of you doing something you don't want them having a picture of you doing.
I'll never run for president.
Ride the goat, boys. Yeah, you just keep changing.
I can do it. I can do it all day long.
All right, do another one.
All right.
Make it Mike Tyson and a pigeon.
Yeah. I like this one. You ever seen that?
What's that, Green Lantern?
No.
What is it?
He's crying. Whoever it is.
That's a girl. That's from that's from a Frank Miller comic called Give Me Liberty or Give Us Liberty, something like that. And it's about this this young girl who grew up in the projects in this dystopian future. And she ended up joining what was the military at the time, which was called PAX. And she was airdropped into the situation before all this in this comic happened. She saw combat, she, for the first time, she was deployed for the first time. Just, I really want to get my head out of this shot so I can explain this.
You should just take your head out of every shot. Your podcast might sell better.
You're right. You're right about that. But the whole point of this is that she saw it all at that point. She went and she served. She did what she thought she should have done. And the whole rest of the story is about this. And the caption above this is this won't kill me. I will live through this. And I think that this is a very powerful image in many ways, especially when it comes to how the story interplays into it. Is because that, you go through horrible things in life, whether it's the alcoholic family you grew up with, or whether it's the military you actually lived through. You got to face harsh things in life. And yeah, you will cry. You will get a bloody nose, but the thing that keeps you going is that, this will not kill me. This will keep going. I will keep fighting. Anyway, that's a bummer of a background. Hold on. There we go. That's fun.
I dig that. What's your favorite dystopian story? Tale.
Kind of like Fallout, like you mentioned. It's
Is Fallout dystopian or post-apocalyptic?
all right.
It can be both for sure.
All right, fair enough. It is. I would say that it is both, That being said, I agree that there's probably a line that it's post-apocalyptic is not the same as dystopian. Um, Dystopian, probably Back to the Future 2. That seems like a very, very horrible dystopian society. Um, I don't like the 2015 that's expressed in Back to the Future 2. That's a horrible future. We should avoid that at all costs.
Um, my favorite dystopian novel is 1984. Definitely, I love Orwell, and that book is just so well done. And there's so many different concepts and ideas that he kind of pitches and puts out there, and a lot of them you can kind of see in modern day geopolitical situations.
Yeah, sure.
My favorite dystopian movie is Idiocracy.
Well, you talk like a fag and your shit's all retarded.
We just got pulled from Facebook and YouTube. So now this is just a phone call.
Well, here's the point.
Idiocracy could never be made today.
That's right. And so it's like everybody who says that is an actual future, don't forget the way that the people talked in that movie. All right?
That's true.
Even in Idiocracy, people were allowed to say stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay?
I like money.
I like money.
Shit's all fucked up. Yeah, anytime I see someone ask on Facebook or someone ask me, what's your favorite horror movie? That's the one I name.
Which one?
Idiocracy.
I wouldn't call that a horror movie. Have you ever seen The Changeling?
No.
1980?
Uh-uh.
Oh yeah. Look at some people like suspense more than less than I do. A lot of people like suspense less than I do, and I really do like suspense. And
I enjoy suspense too.
Yeah. And so I think The Changeling, what's his name? Wilford, what's his name? George C. Scott. Yeah, I think he's like the star in that movie. But it's a really good suspense ghost story movie. And I highly recommend that for anybody who hasn't seen it. Also, if you want good horror, I would, and when it comes to horror, the horror is the concept. You know, it's not the blood, it's not the guts, it's not the Friday.
Premise.
Exactly, it's the concept. And so when it comes to horror, I think of more along the lines of the Twilight Zone or my Exit 13 books, which are available on Amazon.com. The concept is what is terrifying. And so when it comes to like a Twilight Zone episode, it's the concept that, you know, you wake up with this, what we consider a beautiful face, and everyone has pig faces, and that's the world you're living in. And the concept of that is very interesting. It's terrifying in many ways. Even in the Invaders. Oh my God, what a classic.
The Invaders, is that the one where they turn off the power on them?
No, 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 that was the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Yes.
That's the one you're thinking of. The Invaders is better because it's mostly silent throughout the entire episode. And it's about this lonely old woman in a farm fighting off the...
She's a giant.
Exactly.
Yes.
Wait, spoiler alert.
Whatever.
Only happened in 1961.
Yeah. It's only on Netflix and Hulu.
So I mean, and I think the concept of that is what is terrifying. A concept is terrifying. And I think that was what was brilliant about the Twilight Zone series, is that they could convey within like an hour an completely terrifying concept.
Right.
And when it comes to a horror movie, you know, you got 90 minutes of blood and gore and stalking, you know, bad. You notice how like a lot of internet stuff has like filtered into horror movies these days, where it's like somebody's like he's watching their YouTube channel 24/7, and
Right. Or like the dark web.
yeah. Oh, I love the
Or
concept
what
of
was that?
dark web.
What was that Paranormal Activity movie that they did where it was like all like webcams and stuff like that?
Paranormal Activity, the
I think that's what
series.
it was called.
Paranormal Activity
I think I
Wha-
do think that's what it was called.
1 through 4.
Not all of them were like that though.
Or you think
It's like there's security footage of like their cameras in their house, but there's one that's literally like it's like Paranormal Activity viral or something like that, and everything is
Are you thinking about VHS?
no, but those are fun flicks too, and those are fun because the stories are so short, kind of tying back to the idea that you're talking about with Twilight Zone. Really great
What?
Twilight Zone episode I watched. Actually, like the day before I moved in here, was the one with the little boy, and everybody has to think happy thoughts.
Uh, Wish them in the cornfield.
Yeah, I wish I'm in the cornfield.
The
Have you ever seen that one, EK? Oh, you gotta watch it.
if he saw the movie, he saw the remake of that. Um,
Or the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
exactly. Um, that I actually think that's the Beatles episode of Twilight Zone. Way
Really?
overrated. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I knew of it because of the Simpsons, but it was just fun to watch, and that concept is kind of it is kind of scary to think about.
absolutely. And that's the whole point. Is that like the concept is what is terrifying. You know, it's not the blood and the gore. It's not the stabbing.
Um, One that kind of broke me up was I forget what it's called, but it's like the guy is madly in love with the girl, so he goes and buys the love potion, and the guy's like, "Are you sure you want to buy this love potion?" And then he gives it to the girl, and she's like obsessed with him. And then once she's obsessed with him, he doesn't want anything to do with her.
Um, it reminds me of probably my favorite Twilight Zone episode, which is the self improvement of Salvador Ross, where the guy he wants this girl. You know, he steals a car basically to impress her, and she's like, you know, yeah, you're nice and everything, but I don't really, I'm you're not my kind of guy, right? And so he gets mad. She like slams the door on him, and he punches the door, and he's like, why can't I get in? You know, a woman I want. You know, and he breaks his hand punching the door. So he goes to the hospital. When he's in the hospital, he meets this old man sharing a room with him, and the old man has pneumonia, and so they argue about who's got the worst condition. And so he says, I'll tell you what, I'll trade you my broken hand for your pneumonia. And so he wakes up the next morning, he has pneumonia. The old guy has a broken hand. And so he realizes he can start trading, you know, attributes with people, you know, even years, you know, he ends up trading a guy uh, for his apartment and like $1 million um, to for like 30 years or something like that. And so he becomes 30 years older, but then again, he comes across a bunch of people. I'll buy 1 year off of your life for $100, you know? And so he gets himself back to a younger state, you know? And so he's constantly trying to get with this girl, you know? And that's the whole purpose of what he's trying to do. And so the girl keeps rejecting him, keeps rejecting him. And she has a father. And he ends up trying to buy her father's compassion off of him for $1 million. Buys it. His father ends up shooting him when he is finally good enough to be with his daughter because he had her father's compassion. And he said, "Oh, it's a beautiful story." Spoiler alert. Sorry, woo.
That's a good one though.
15 beers. This is my favorite Twilight Zone episode.
Uh, one that I really liked, and I think about it sometimes when I'm getting hypnotized by my cell phone, is the casino episode. The guy that gets all obsessed with the slot machine.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
It's like the first season.
What's interesting about that is the sound design. I think EK, if he's there, I mean, I'm sure he could be intrigued about the sound design because they did this thing where it's like the clacking of coins out of a slot machine. They would take these sounds and they would like make it into a kind of a phrase like "play me," you know, shh, but it was all in the
Right.
sound design.
Play me, Francis.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so I think that's a lot of what's interesting, especially about those older Twilight Zone episodes. Is a lot of thought and effort went into like things like sound design. Um, I'm trying to remember the one where it was shit. The
One that has a really scary concept as far as like, I don't know. I've just been kind of naming episodes, but one that has a really scary concept is the guys that think the astronauts that think they've landed on Mars, and they're out there like dehydrated and trying to figure out what they're gonna do. And you know what I'm talking about.
um which one? It's like
They end up they're just in like outside of Vegas or outside of Reno or something like that.
oh right with the yeah. I think that's actually kind of. I think you're bringing this up because you think that is kind of based on a real situation.
It seems like something that could be. Yeah, there's something about the reality of that episode. You know what I mean? It's not based in like a supernatural. Really, it's just a mistake.
Well, like you mentioned, it's like that episode of the Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Is that you don't have to go very far to enter the frontier, you know,
Right, right,
and so a lot of people will think that um you have to go into space to enter the realm of science fiction or something like that, or you got to walk into a mystical portal or a wardrobe or something like that. It's
right,
like it's like no, if you want to face the real world, I mean, it's like it's around every single corner. You know,
right.
the spectacular, the fantastic, it's around every single corner in this world. You know, you don't have to go very far to, especially if you have an active imagination, to visualize everything, to see it. I mean, it's not like my fiction comes from nowhere. It comes from concepts and ideas. It's like I have this in my Exit 13 books. I have this story about a bunch of teenage kids hanging out at a lodge, near a lake. And a murderer is coming to kill them, and then I just upturned it. It's like, hey, all of a sudden, a bunch of 40 somethings show up and tell you how to deal with this guy because they have a guy who can see people who are dead. And they have a girl who can read thoughts, or be possessed by other souls. You know, there's adventure and excitement around every corner in this world.
Hell yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. So you like Twilight Zone? Do you like Black Mirror?
Uh, I've I've seen several episodes of Black Mirror. Um, the problem with Black Mirror is in many ways very uh, the same problem with modern cinema, where the plot how has to always feature some sort of progressive idea. You know, and there's a Twilight Zone episode called "The Four of Us Are Dying," and it's about a guy who could manipulate his face and become anybody he chose to be. And without going into that plot, it's like the whole story of that, "The Four of Us Are Dying," has nothing to do with being what is what is right or is what is progressive, or we have to include diversity. And a lot of Black Mirror stuff, although they have very good concepts, there is also this element of progressivism.
It comes with a narrative.
Exactly, an idea. It's like these two. Have you seen the one with the two guys playing the video game, where it's a thing they attach to their head and they
Yes,
go this
I know
virtual.
exactly what
Yeah,
you're talking about, and how
and
they spin that into like a progressive ideal.
exactly. It's like I can understand that can happen. It's just that I don't understand how every single episode has to be something like that.
Right.
Even the one where it's this paradise beach town for old people who are like,
Yeah.
even that one, it had this. It was one girl seducing another girl, but the one girl was playing a dude. So I mean, there's always this progressive narrative. The story should be the point, not the progressiveness. And so, as a writer, I couldn't imagine somebody looking at my story, something that I wrote, and it's like, well, can we put a black guy in here? Can we put a gay person in here? Can we put a short little Jew? Can we put and that in itself is racist, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Sometimes a story happens in Scandinavia. Sometimes a story happens in Zimbabwe. You know what I mean? And
Right.
unfortunately, some areas of the world are very homogenous.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm running out of beer, bro.
Universal signal for wrap it up.
Yeah. No, it's
I'm about to get ornery. That's what I mean.
about to get ornery. Mama said alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
My regards to your dear mama.
Another thing about Black Mirror though too, as far as like keeping people's attention, is if you go to watch it and you go to season 1, episode 1, that first episode is really heavy. I mean, it's heavy.
Okay, you want to talk about that first episode? Okay, fair enough. I think that
My favorite episodes. I mean, I was just saying, I was just putting that out there. My favorite episodes are like White Bear, which is the one about the couple who like. It's the one with the woman where she wakes up and she's being like recorded by everybody on their cell phones all day, and she's like running around town.
yeah, that's called living in China. The let's be honest. Let's be honest. The that episode that you're talking about is living in China. That being said, I want to talk about
Oh,
first.
that's the social. That's the social credit score episode. I
Yeah.
think you're thinking of.
Oh, okay, I'm wrong. My bad. I have to refresh my memory. Maybe I'll watch it tomorrow or something. But let's talk about that first episode of Black Mirror and how bold of a statement that it was to put that out, because that is of all the Black Mirror plots, of all of them, it is the worst. It is the worst Black Mirror plot, and it's ridiculous that it even got to that point. And I'll be honest with you, when I watched that episode, I was like, I don't think I want to watch any more of this. However, I did. And I think that was a bold move on the people of Black Mirror to put that out first.
Why? Why are you saying these things that you say?
The if you have a shitty story, if you're presenting, for example, Black Mirror as well as Twilight Zone is a short story kind of narrative.
Yeah.
But if you're presenting a short story kind of narrative, and you have like a bevy of them, like two handfuls, of stories to tell, and you have one season with Netflix, lead with the shitty one, end with the best one.
All right, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
As a writer who has failed to to omit some certain aspects of my writing. Yeah, that's my advice.
Before we get off here, what's your favorite episode of Black Mirror?
I'd have to say it's the one with the Star Trek dude.
I haven't watched that one yet. I know
Um,
which one you're talking about. That's from the newest season, right?
yeah. Um, I like it because it's kind of characteristic of that kind of character, and even though it's a social justice kind of episode, um, there are those people in the world, these many tyrants, and coming back to Dungeons and Dragons or role playing games and others like them, like Heroes Unlimited. You'll run across people who are dungeon masters or game masters who are little tyrants, and these little tyrants, they will rule their Dungeons and Dragons world or Heroes Unlimited world with an iron fist, and you're just like, if you play with that kind of guy, you're just, uh, I will never vote for you for president because you are the kind of person who doesn't deserve power. And just like every single Karen in the world, it's you are the kind of person who doesn't deserve power. And I think the difference is that women don't play Dungeons and Dragons.
So is that your advice to society? Is for women to play Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, I don't think that they for example, when you play like a role playing game, there are aspects in yourself in every single character, even if you're the game master, the dungeon master, or the character you're playing. And if you're the dungeon master or the game master and you are a tyrant in your world, then people aren't going to enjoy the game. And so women don't necessarily need to play Dungeons and Dragons, but you need to understand that if you're trying to be a tyrant on social media by telling people what they should and shouldn't say, or unfriending people, or like protesting people who say what you think that they should or should not say, you're a tyrant. All right. Nobody likes a tyrant in Dungeons and Dragons or the real world.
Agreed. I definitely agree with that. Scott, how can everybody find you and
Uh,
all your glory?
I would really appreciate it if you went over to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio, become a patron for $3 a month, the cost of a beer, a month. You can get full access to all of our video content, such as it is. That being said, you can also subscribe to my podcast on wherever you get your podcast from. I don't know. There's so many. And so look for Shock Monkey Radio. If you want to email me, like yell at me, email me at madman@fxbgpr.com. That's the name I roll with, Madman. Be sure to check out my books. Search for Scott L. Robbins with two T's and two B's on Amazon. I got like 5 books up there for digital download, like 3 Exit 13 books, Ravings of a Madman, and The Bunny Years, a memoir. That's where you can find me.
Beautiful. And then EK has all that information, I'm sure, so we can copy and paste that into the description. Everybody can see the links.
Sure.
Hopefully, we get you 1 or 2 book sales,
I don't care about that.
and then you can buy me a beer when all this is over.
You mean tomorrow?
Yeah. Sure.
Oh, so I need to bring beer tomorrow. All right.
Yeah. Are you coming over tomorrow to do your podcast?
Yeah, I'm coming over tomorrow to do my podcast. It's live every Tuesday night.
Well, you've been doing it from home, haven't you?
Yeah, but I want to come see you guys.
All right. Well, we want to see you too.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, then I'll see you tomorrow, Scott.
Absolutely. See you in a few hours, man.
All right, bud. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye. That was fun.
was fun.
Oh,